Let's start with the practical part, with the telepathic communication and the areas of focus. And areas of focus indicates already that we just take three important aspects out of telepathic communication for those practical exercises. We will have some many more aspects also, but if you run, for example, your own event in your telepathy center, we know that many participants in those events, normal people participating in those events, for example, scientists, to name it, they have three major questions. The first question is very simple. When they ask how to make that contact, how do I initiate a contact, for example, with the extraterrestrial being? How do I do that? The second aspect is a very important aspect, but we will not have practical exercise this evening for that, but we will cover that very deeply. That is fear. We had many responses of participants who were a little bit unsure who could be the beings they will be in contact then during the events. And we will cover that aspect, fear, so that you have an idea how to handle that with your own participants in the events you run in your regional telepathy center. Another aspect is the doubts. Very important if we communicate telepathically, because how can we decide, how can we assess whether the information we received and we have perceived is true or is just fantasy, for example. And we will give you some help also by running through an exercise which is led by Citria, how to cover and handle that aspect, that focus area doubt. Then finally, we will go to the very important part, the telepathy centers itself, where we then start to discuss and also including a practical telepathic communication with the cooperation with plans if we run our own and develop our own telepathy center. And at the end, we will have our communication with the extraterrestrial friends who are already very excited, and they are looking forward to those worldwide contacts this evening, because they learn their contacts today, this evening, and separately if it's run tomorrow and the coming days, because they will work with them in their region on their telepathy centers. But as I mentioned before, we will have telepathic communication practical exercise or part with that. Now let's start with the how to initiate a contact, and we will show you very roughly two major steps you can use to initiate a contact. That is not just the initiation a contact with the extraterrestrial friends. Basically, that fits for all you want to get in contact with telepathically, whether it's a plant, an animal, an extraterrestrial sister or brother. If it's a MacGraph generator, for example, it's always the same process or steps you can use. Some of you are very good telepath. You already might have very good intensive experiences with channeling, for example. So you might have a little bit different process, but basically you can use this description for your local regional events to train or to help others to go this telepathic communication path. The first thing is to get in a very relaxed alpha state. The second is to consider the emotional aspect of telepathic communication we will cover. Then, as you have learned in the second webinar, the individual stage creation is a very important aspect during the telepathic communication. We will cover that a little bit later again. Then the next aspect is, how do I focus my consciousness on my telepathic communication partner? And you can see those first steps as a preparation phase. Then we will have the opening of the communication itself, and then the closing. Beginning with step 1. So it is a good recommendation not to be in a hurry if you would like to communicate telepathically. That is very easy, but it is sometimes possible, and if you are a little bit experienced, you can do that even if you are under time pressure, for example, or even if you are in a very noisy environment, you can communicate telepathically. This precondition described here on that slide is just for your first experiences if you run or when you run your own events in your telepathy center, regional events with other people. And you now see a rough description of how could you reach a very low, very easy, a very low alpha state, which enables us in that relaxed situation to start the communication. It's very simple. And you can go through a little bit separately from that webinar, but if we have a little bit later our practical sessions, we will come back to that and we will go through each of those steps practically, so you can have a feeling how this works with you, and then you can project that to your possible participants in events in your region. The next thing, and you see here a golden star on the left side in the box smiling, and the second box is loving attention, that touches the very important point of telepathic communication, which concerns emotions. Emotions are very, very important. And what we recommend is, if you are, for example, in the mood of rage or hate, or if you are angry about somebody, then you could think to stop telepathic communication, because your emotional mood, your emotional state is transmitted and communicated as well. And that is one of the reasons that some people who have the emotional mood fear, they address, based on that emotional level, a certain state or a certain group of other beings who are in the same emotional level. So that fits then, if you are in fear, then you will meet some other beings who like that emotion, fear. And this boxes here, smiling and loving attention, will give you very good and very strong tools how you could increase your vibration. I would like to describe it as vibration, your state, your emotional state, just by doing these two things. The first thing is smiling, and we will have that very short 1-minute exercise in a second. And the other thing is the loving attention. And if you look to the pictures, you might smile, because the animals, for example, are so cute, and that baby is so cute. And because you smile and you feel that cute situation, this is meant by loving attention. If you remember this special emotional mood, then you can use that memorization, I would like to say, of that emotional mood for the beginning of the telepathic communication. Together with smiling, you have a very strong, very good start for telepathic communication, and that touches and is valid for each consciousness entities you might or you want to be in contact with. Now we come to this very short exercise. It's very easy, and I would like to ask you now to just to relax in a very, very comfortable position in your chair or couch or on the floor. And just two things, and those two pictures, they indicate already what needs to be done. The first exercise, very simple, is if you close your eyes and you pull down the corners of your mouth, and then you feel the mood. And after a few seconds, you explicitly pull the corners of your mouth upward and feel the mood. And what we would like to do, and you have 1 minute time, just close your eyes, pull the corners of your mouth down and feel, and up and feel. And we come back in 1 minute. So I think we can now come back and open your eyes. And the simple question is, did you feel any difference between your mouth, if it's pulled downwards, and the mouth pulled upwards? And I think most of you don't need to send a message via chat. We use that a little bit later. If you feel that difference, then you know what we mean if we say, if you pull the corners of your mouth upwards, then you have another feeling, another emotion. And because telepathy communicates many aspects, including emotions, that helps to be in a very good and very interesting and positive state for your dialogue partner. And that is something which increases your vibration. And you also could use that in your daily life. So if you leave your bedroom, for example, in the morning, and you go to the restroom and you look into the mirror, and you can imagine which of both smileys you will recognize in the mirror, and then I think it's very clear which smiley it should be, right? And if you pull upwards your mouth, then you will have a total different feeling in your daily life. So that was a very simple exercise, and what we recommend, we have very good experiences with that, is to use that during your regional events with the participants, because it's very easy for the participants then to recognize what emotions mean, just if we set the focus of our consciousness of that emotional mood. Now we are now going to step 3, to the individual stage. And if you remember the presentation of webinar 2, you might remember Angelina, which is an example for telepathic communication. And here in that chart, you see that Angelina projects herself, and this visualization and projection you have learned is very important. She projects her as a bride on a stage, on an empty stage. But if you go through the presentation through theoretical principles of telepathy, you have learned that it could be of any complexity, and it depends just on your own creativity. And we need that, your creativity now, when we communicate with the plant in front of you. In that case, Angelina focuses on a flower. That is the same thing we will do a little bit later with your plant. And again, you can use this process for your participants in your own events as well. Angelina, as a bride, focuses on a flower. She visualizes a flower on her stage. But now that is different from that what we had shown in the theoretical principles presentation, Angelina now is creative. She uses her creativity in the right brain hemisphere, and what she is doing on her stage, she projects her now as a butterfly. That is just the idea of Angelina. Instead of a bride, she's now a butterfly. And now, in her projection on her stage, the size of the flower has changed as well. So she's now a butterfly sitting on the flower, and she is now very, very strongly focused in the right brain hemisphere. She is seeing herself using that low alpha state and closed eyes, and she can start to communicate. And because you are also creative, you can use other approaches. You can use, for example, an animal like an ant, or you can use a small girl or a cat or whatever you would like, or you can also project yourself. You can leave it as it is. But a projection using creativity is a very strong tool to focus very strongly in the right brain hemisphere, which is now important for telepathic communication. Now, you see we are in step 5, which is here shown on the top of that chart. And what she is doing is she starts with the communication, she opens the dialogue. And what we have done here, that is an example. But that is a very important example because it shows it was what you can use for all communications telepathically, independently what kind of consciousness entity it is. She says, dear flower, in that case, she says, okay, my name is Angelina, and she mentioned, I'd like to learn from you, which is very important. If we start a communication with other consciousness entities with the idea of, I like to learn from you, then you open a very good emotional environment for that communication. And you will learn that even it's a crystal, for example, you can learn from that crystal, or even it's an ant, a small ant, you can learn from that. You can learn, even it's a little bit different how to learn, you can learn if you talk and communicate with a molecule. That means on an atom level, on a molecule level, if you start to communicate with a molecule, you also can learn from that communication. And because you are very friendly and you ask, please, dear flower, is that okay if we now get in contact? This flower is very open for that communication. It's a very friendly approach by Angelina, projected as a butterfly in that case, and the flower agrees. Now we have that dialogue open, that communication opened, and that is an example for the communication for all consciousness entities, even for the Markgraf generator, the free energy generator, for example. The communication, the bidirectional communication flows, and you can exchange all kind of information you would like. You can ask, you can send information, you can use your creativity for that communication. And then finally, that is the respectful closing of that telepathic dialogue. And Angelina, in that case, says, thank you. That was great that I was able to talk to you. And she would like to do that again. And she asked whether that is possible to talk with her. And in that example, there is something you might recognize in experiences many, many times. If you talk with plants, for example. In that case, the flower answered, yes, sure, that was great to talk to you. And then there is an information added, a hint. Don't forget to water your flowers at home. They are thirsty. And that is a very important thing because it indicates and remember you that we are all connected. And you will, communication by communication, recognize that the flowers, for example, the plants, they are connected and they know of each other's. And if you did something in the past which was not so good for the flowers, the new flower, they will know that and they will possibly remember of those activities you did to other plants. And just to give you that information that this kind of communication is not just for you, for yourself in the trainer telepathy center environment. No, that is a very important experience for all the participants you might run in your regional events. Because we had this experience with many, many people. They had sometimes tears in her eyes when the flowers they communicated during the events remembered and pointed to things they did to their brothers and sisters in the plant world. And that is a very important experience that the participants can get out of your events.